Spirit of Life family, it's Katie. Today I'd like to talk to you about turnips and radishes. Walk with me back to a time not too long ago when I was in my kitchen preparing dinner. Maybe 4 or 5-year-old Jillian shambles in, grabs onto the edge of the counter and pulls herself up to look and see what I'm cooking. As she sees the turnips I'm using, she turns up her nose. "I don't like those. Them's spicy," she says. Zachary, the older but wiser sibling, pipes up from his racetrack at my feet. "Turnips aren't spicy, they're yummy." And before the "no they're not, yes they are" battle of the siblings begins, I chime in. "Zachary, I think that she thinks these are radishes. They look a little alike, don't you think?" And then I watch the wheels turning in his head as he pivots from the argument that he'd planned to have with her and turns to say, "Oh, I see. They are kind of alike, but if a radish screams, a turnip just whispers. You should try one." Friends, I tell you that to tell you this. Our Bible is like that. Both the Old and New Testaments tell the very same story. However, if the New Testament loudly and boldly proclaims Jesus with all of the flavor of the Gospels, the Old Testament whispers Jesus from the shadows and the details. Let me explain what I mean. The Sunday school kiddos and I are journeying through the book of Genesis with our Jesus goggles on. I've challenged them to help me find the whispers of Christ in each story that we learn about. The next lesson that I'm preparing is from Genesis 39 and 40. It's the story of Joseph. At first glance, it's the story about a guy who can't catch a break. His brothers hate him, they are jealous of him, they sell him into slavery in Egypt. He becomes a servant of an Egyptian officer, Pharaoh's captain of the guard. And as if that's not bad enough, then his master's wife notices his handsome looks and tries to seduce him. So when he does the right thing and refuses her advances, she lies about the affair to make herself look good and imply guilt on his part. And then he's put in prison. So you might be asking yourself where Jesus is in this story, but stay with me. Quiet whispers, remember. So Joseph is in prison, and Moses goes into great detail describing 2 of Joseph's fellow inmates. First, there is a man who is cupbearer to the king, and another who is the king's chief baker. Rather than racing past these professions as minutia, let's pause for a second to think about the significance. The cupbearer taste tests the wine before the king to make sure that it's safe to drink and not poisoned, a very important and trusted position. And then you have the man who oversees all of the bread making at the palace. You've got 2 important figures, one in charge of the bread and another in charge of the wine for the king's feasts. Did you hear the whisper? Bread and wine in the same story. Where else in Scripture are bread and wine significant? Both men have dreams on the same night, and Joseph is given the interpretation of these dreams by God. In 3 days' time, the cupbearer will be restored to his prominent position in the king's palace. And in the same 3 days' time, the baker will be hanged on a tree for his crimes and die. The prophetic dreams come true, of course, and the story ends. But is that really the end? I don't think this story finds its final conclusion until thousands of years later during the events of Holy Week on Maundy Thursday, before he is arrested, when Jesus gives us the words of institution. There, he speaks of the significance of wine and bread, that the bread, his body, will be sacrificed and hanged on a tree for sins committed by the whole world, and that the wine, his blood, is spilled for the forgiveness of sins to restore us to a position in the king's palace. So many Christians are scared off by the stories of the Old Testament or are tempted to dismiss them as no longer relevant once Jesus comes on the scene. But instead, I challenge you to read these passages with your Jesus goggles on, always looking for the whispers of the Messiah. You never know where Jesus will turn up. I'm convinced that you'll even find that before the incarnation, he was there all the time.